into you. I'm breathing, I'm breathing. I think I'm reading you well. I'm reading, I'm reading. I think I'm reading you well. Burning, crashing temples in the edge of the sun. I think I fell in love with lightning bolts. I'm ready to run into you. I'm screaming, I'm screaming. I think I'm reading you well. Believe it, believe it. I think I'm reading you well. Reading, I'm patient in keeping. I'm wanting more, picking out the loose puzzle pieces scattered around the floor. Linking, I'm drifting, just waiting for you to know. Following the crumbs that I left for you, leading to my door. Waiting, hey, oh, hey. More, picking up the loose puzzle pieces scattered around the floor. Linking, I'm drifting, just waiting for you to know. Following the crumbs that I left for you, leading to my door. I think I'm reading, I think I'm reading you well. I think I'm screaming, I think I'm reading you well. I'm reading, I think I'm reading you, I think I'm reading you well.
Thank you, Millbrook Singers. That was, I actually didn't know what song they were going to sing. It felt like an anthem for teenagers, if you paid attention to the lyrics at all. I want to welcome all of you to campus. Parents, guardians, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for partnering with Millbrook. I trust the trust that I have in my colleagues here, 151 full and part-time employees at Millbrook School, inspires me every day. And when I was the director of admissions and my own children were really young, like 4 years old and 2 years old, they used to ask me, "Dad, what do you do? Like, what is it that you actually do?" And my answer was I would ask really wonderful people for their children. And I know it's a little more complicated than that. Actually, that makes me think of why were we giving so much time to school year abroad? But we can go over that later. But I want to thank you for your belief in Millbrook, the people who make it come alive, my colleagues, the faculty, the staff, and me. And I want to thank you for your children. I hope that you've had some good times going back to school today. So the state of the school. Before I get to some formal remarks, I thought I might just share 3 anecdotes that may or may not illustrate the state of the school. The first is our third form. So you know we have a tradition at Millbrook School where the third formers come over to the head of school's house on Thursday evenings and they sit down dutifully and listen to the beautiful stories that I want to tell them. The very first reading this year, that is exactly what this class did. They came in order, please and thank you. I had the prefects over, they ran the gauntlet, they shook the hands of every single prefect, they sat down, great posture, didn't say a word to one another, and listened to me read a little bit of the history of the school. Last night, the third form came over, probably 10 minutes early, which means they convinced their dorm parents that they needed to be in our house, which was a lie. They piled basically on top of one another, like one big human amoeba. They talked for 10 minutes, and then I asked them, "What do you think I should tell your parents tomorrow?" And here are the responses. "Well, Mr. Downs, you should just share with them the history of Millbrook School. It's really cool." And I was like, "Don't lie to me. what should I share with them? Well, Mr. Downs, you often have really nice and thoughtful and insightful announcements. Share with them a little bit of what you've been saying in assembly. And I was like, okay, I don't know, but I want to keep it fresh. And then one third former said, Mr. Downs, you should introduce yourself. Like, that would be a good place to start. And I really admire her pragmatism. So if I haven't met you, my name is Jon Downs. I've been at Millbrook School for 14 years. I've been head of school now. This is my third year. I did have a little stint as acting head of school. I've been the assistant head. I've been a director of admissions. And I've worked in 2 other schools where I've taught, I've coached, I've been a dean of students. And I absolutely love it here. My wife works here. She was former chair of the English department, works in college counseling, is actually taking a sabbatical to do her MSW at Columbia University, which is expensive, by the way. And I don't really know it's for the betterment of her work or the betterment of our marriage. But that's a little bit about me and the third form. The second story that I want to share with you is of the sixth form. So at the beginning of the year, we have a formal exercise that we call convocation. It is the formal acknowledgement of the beginning of school. And our students look terrific. They throw on the ties and the blazers and the dresses, and they line up in procession of each form. There's a bagpiper, and we have international flags from every country that's represented in our student body. We march into the chapel. Reverend Hardy gives the benediction, and then I give my remarks. This year, my remarks were on curiosity. I'll spare you the time now, but if you want to hear those remarks, I think they're online. At the end of convocation, we sing our school hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth. This sixth form, every single one of them, sang it at the top of their lungs. I've never witnessed anything like this. And then they erupted into applause, and then we formally proceeded out. And I whispered to Cam Hardy, have you ever seen anything like that in your 30 plus years at Millbrook? She was like, no, this class is amazing. They're really into it. And then I walked up to a sixth former with whom I've had a relationship for over 4 years. And I said, are you that excited about For the Beauty of the Earth? I've never thought it was like that cool of a school song. And then I said, or was it just so blazing hot in the chapel that you wanted to speed up the tempo of the song to get out? And he said, Mr. Downs, you keep teaching us not to be binary thinkers, so the answer is yes. They'll use your words against you. And then the third story, which in my mind, actually, from the head of school seat, really expresses the state of the school. Last weekend, we had our Board of Trustees in town. We had a 3-day wonderful retreat, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second. But the formal meeting was on Saturday morning, and for those of you who know who the functions of a board in nonprofits or in independent schools, there's sometimes a session called executive session. And that is the session when no employee of the school is in there. It's just the volunteers, the trustees of the institution. It's the session that makes the head of school the most nervous. And in my past, I would just pace back and forth at home and wait for the text from the board chair to say, come in. This session, I decided to walk over to the Strong Box. The Strong Box, once, for most of its history in the school, it was the school's bank. And it was where students would keep their cash when they came to school. And then we used to teach students, you remember this? We'd teach them how to write checks. And then they would take out the cash from the Strong Box. And it was a community service at the school. It's not as relevant today. But Jeff Smith came up with the idea of actually keeping that name for our coffee bar. And so I went over to sit in the coffee bar to wait to be summoned by the Board of Trustees. And Jeff was in there alone. And he had an apron on, and he was clearly doing his barista thing, making coffee for people. And 2 Aramark employees. So Aramark is the company that we partner with for all of our food services. 2 Aramark employees came in. They're new to Millbrook School, so they've been working for about 2 weeks. And Jeff said, would you like a cup of coffee? And he said, yeah, sure. Omu ordered iced coffee, and Ryan ordered, one of those things that takes forever. Like, I want a pumpkin latte, oat milk, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And Jeff started making up the coffees. And I said, or Jeff said, how do you like Millbrook School? And Ryan said, I can't believe this place. It is remarkable. I've worked in institutional dining my whole life. I was at Oakwood Friends, I was at South Kent, I was at Vassar, he named a couple of other local institutions. I've never met people so nice. Your children say please and thank you. Your adults engage with us. Truly, this is a remarkable community. I said, wow. And I said, Omu, I detect an accent. Where's your accent from? And she said, West Africa. And I said, where? And she said, Burkina Faso. And I said, oh, parlez-vous français? And she said, she lit up like she was just seen for the first time. Do you know Burkina Faso? Do you know? And I said, I really didn't until probably 6 or 7 years ago when we enrolled a student at Millbrook from Burkina Faso. His name's Useni Buddha, and he's wonderful. And she said, Buddha? Where did he go? And I said, he went to this place in California called Stanford, and he was the captain of their soccer team, and now he plays in the Major League Soccer, like he's MLS. 8th round, and he's actually one of the few students I've ever looked at and said, I think he could be the president of that country. And then she said, that's incredible, I'd like to meet him. And then Jeff Smith interjected, he started speaking like fluent French just to show how intelligent our CFO, who was once a French teacher, is. And they engaged, and they stopped and they said, sorry, who are you? And it was like this moment of undercover boss that we didn't plan. And Jeff goes, I'm Jeff. I've been here for a decade or so with my wife, Sarah. I'm the CFO, and that's John. That's the head of school. And they froze, like took their coffee and walked out. So I thought I would begin with those anecdotes to tell you, there are these ways that sometimes we can measure community that aren't so data-driven, but do tell a lot. And, those three stories, the third form, the sixth form as the bookends of the school, and new employees to the school just warm my heart, and I wanted to share them with you. I will say that the tone and tenor of our culture, the morale of our faculty and students is as strong as I've ever felt it in 14 years at Millbrook School in my professional time here. If you were in assembly this morning, you felt it too. It was playful, it was proactive, it was concerned, there were appreciations, and all of it was in this swirling sort of care and respect that exists at Millbrook. And I'll begin the state of the school with, we are not without our problems to solve. So NAIS, the National Association of Independent Schools, recently published a survey of 1,000+ heads of schools who identified the top challenges of the day. And here are the 5. Finding and retaining qualified staff as workplace expectations shift. 2, responding to conflict in and about independent schools. 3, caring for students and staff through stressful times. 4, ensuring the school's sustainability. And 5, balancing the demand for more programs with limited resources and commitments to existing initiatives. We are not immune to any of those challenges. They're real, some of them threats, which are worthy of our time, our attention, and occasionally our combat. 1, 4, and 5, finding, retaining qualified staff as workplace expectation shift, ensuring the school's sustainability, and balancing the demand for more programs with the reality of limiting resources actually strike me as challenges of almost any generation or organization, school or not, for-profit or not. And I'm the 7th head of Millbrook School, and I suspect the 8th and the 9th and the 10th head of Millbrook School will deal with these challenges too. They will have to be managed day by day and year by year like we manage them now. 2 and 3, responding to conflict in and about independent schools, and caring for students and staff through stressful times, strike me as unique challenges of this time, this climate, and these circumstances. There are existential threats in our world, assaults against our very being, our values, our people, and our existence, which make these times painful to parent, to educate, and to help our children make sense of the world in which we live. And as adults in the lives of children, it's our duty and responsibility to face these threats head on, to process them with children and meet them where they are. Allow me to illustrate a little bit. Every generation before us grew up in a world that had beauty and love and optimism and wonderment and ugliness in the world. You pick any time in American history, and I bet we could pinpoint a crisis, national or overseas. And for the most part, we could control exposure of the ugliness with our children. We could process that challenge in developmentally fitting manners and thereby protect childhood, its innocence, and the pace and proportion of how quickly a child should or must grow up. Now, online or analog, ugliness is seemingly inescapable. Even when we turn it off, the news feeds and social media and phones and artificial intelligence, and even when we're in front of all the optimism, beauty, and wonderment the world has to offer, and it does. You've seen a lot of it here today. Children still cannot escape the nature of ugly adult behavior on public display. Last weekend, driving my children, they are 11, 9, and 6. We're driving to sports in our seemingly quiet, Shangri-La-like area of the Hudson Valley. And I was asked these questions. Dad, don't get mad at me for saying this word, but why does that flag say "fuck Joe Biden"? It's 11. Well, I responded, people don't like or agree with the president's point of view, and they are impolite in their expression of those feelings. Those feelings that they may have may be real and valid, but I bet there's probably a nicer, more helpful, and productive way to share how to express their disagreement. We crossed the Newburgh Bridge. Some of you maybe did that today. Dad, why does that sign say "you're not alone"? There is help. Who is alone and who needs help? Was I going to explain suicidal ideation to a 6-year-old? No, I don't think that my children need to hear the alarming statistics of bridge jumpers in the Hudson Valley. I said, bridges are symbols for connections. And so this is a great place to remind people that whenever you're feeling alone and disconnected, it's good to talk with others and ask for help. And then we pulled up to a car that said LGBTQ+. And my 9-year-old, Aurora, said, Dad, what does that mean? And as I was trying to figure out in the moment, and actually doing a terrible job in my head, of how to explain sexual identity and orientation to an 11, 9, and 6-year-old, we actually pulled up a little closer, and Aurora read down the LGBTQ+, and it said, liberty, beer, Trump, liberty, guns, beer, Trump, and questions. Before I could say anything, they're kids. They went on a tangent about whether or not Donald Trump likes beer. Does he like it like Dad? Does he like it like Mom pretends to? And we closed the chapter. We didn't talk about it for now. So we're rearing and educating children in a difficult time. There's an absence of civility in our country, a plague of anxiety, a pandemic of binary thinking that are the norms of the day. It's almost impossible to tint the windows at times. And right here at home, this uncouth behavior, whether it's by adults in our respective spheres in our small towns or world leaders and famous influencers, it is being modeled for our children. There are real and deeply troubling wars overseas where thousands and thousands of innocent people are being killed. And I've had conversations with some of you and your children about the terrorist attacks in Israel and how we might process these events as a school in support of our many Jewish students. There are real and raw and unbearable images that are impossible to unsee online. And I admittedly struggle with how to process it all. How do you process violence and murder with children? How do you strike a balance of protecting and preserving these wonderful adolescent years when our children should be worrying about math homework and memorizing lines for the play or a Saturday game? How do you balance it with the realities of living online and processing the bad behaviors of these horrific events in our time? I ask myself this every day. And I didn't ask it so much in 2002 when I first started teaching at Newark Academy in Livingston, New Jersey. Mostly as educators and parents, I think it's our job to listen to the needs of our students and our children and to meet them wherever they are. The complexities of humanity and all the things we're trying to do at times feel like they're evaporating into the ether. There's an erosion of sympathy and empathy and open-mindedness and growth and human fallibility and failure and forgiveness and love and accountability. We're in a world where one is this, and if you are this, you cannot be that. And one is that, and if you are that, you cannot be this. Absolutism seems to rule the day. And I truly believe, in my heart of heart, that Millbrook is an antidote. We all in this room support a necessary organization, one that should be known and needed by the world. And while we will not solve all the problems of the day, we will do our best to support the students who want to understand and solve the problems of the future. Millbrook's values are diametrically opposed to this too common concert of behavior: disrespect, respect, deceit, integrity, selfishness, service, waste, stewardship of the natural world, closed-mindedness, curiosity. So we must unapologetically and outspokenly be a values-based school. Of course, we care deeply about preparing our students for college. We are a school. We will always keep a close tab on the studies and scholarship our children need to succeed in college, and we must craft and evolve the offerings of our curriculum to prepare for just that. The fundamental question of curriculum design is the joy of teaching. Right? We geek out on this stuff. Who are we teaching? What knowledge, skills, and passions do they have when they arrive here? What should we teach them when they are here? What content, knowledge, core competencies, and skills will be most relevant now and in the future? What tools do our students need in their figurative toolkits to expand their skills in artistic expression, develop hypotheses to prove and disprove in scientific labs, learn logic through mathematical proofs, practice proficiencies in languages other than their first, write, articulate, lucid, cogent, coherent, analytic arguments that are backed and substantiated with evidence, and prepare them for college and the proverbial real world? What are the tests and assessments and systems of feedback for growth? We deliver a curriculum that's excellent here. I am confident of it. I asked this of a few parents today. Pick a graduate, any of Millbrook School, who attends college. It's highly selective or specialized or in between. They are prepped. That's the fun stuff. That's the stuff that we do with intention, that we love to design, and I hope you all witnessed in classes today. What I want to suggest is the biggest differentiator for Millbrook is our independence in the context of being a boarding school. We have an enormous privilege and responsibility because we can wholly educate in ways that other schools cannot. By design, we are afforded opportunities to step beyond the skills of academia and into the realm of holistic, intellectual, and spiritual education. Will they become productive, informed, generous, resilient citizens in this democratic society? Will they engage in civil discourse with an open mind, whether they stand with a majority or minority on any given topic? Will they be able to defer judgment in a world that demands voice and answers instantaneously? I'm going to repeat that one. Will they be able to defer judgment in a world that demands voice and answers instantaneously? Will they be good husbands and wives and partners and friends? Will they be ethical leaders and socially conscious volunteers? We're far too often tempted to draw lines between schools and vocations. So let me ask this. Will they find an avocation, a hobby, that will live with them through their lives and provide them with a sense of purpose and meaning? Statistics show that the earlier in life one finds that thing, the more of a chance of it sticking. That fulfillment and purpose in retirement actually can be defined by childhood exposure. Mr. Poling, the founding head of Millbrook School, used to call this the forgotten half of education. Fishing, camping, drawing, birding, hiking, whatever that thing is, the things we enjoy in life. And boarding schools like Millbrook, of our size, our nimble nature, we have an opportunity to provide that half too. And don't dismiss its value. You know the old adage, do you live to work or do you work to live? Again, not binary thinking, but I hope there's some element of working that leads us all to living how we desire to live. So truly holistic schools like Millbrook are interested in developing experiences that prepare students to be 40 and 50 and 60. Preparing them to be 18 to 22 is actually the easy stuff. We are bigger than a transactional experience. We want to be a transformative one. So timeless skills, manners, developing a moral compass are paramount in developing our children. The essential question is, how do we do it? So Eleanor Roosevelt, just miles from here, on the property that was almost Millbrook School. I'll give you that lesson later. Don't have time for it today. But in Hyde Park, Eleanor Roosevelt asked the question, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? And her answer to that question was in small circles, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. And when I first read that beautiful quotation, I thought, that's us. That's Millbrook. But the question remains, how do we do what we do? And the best answer I can give you is a framework. And just forgive my alliteration. We'll call it 5 Ps. Promise, people, program, place, and a plan. Our promise. We must have a worthy mission to deliver. And we do. And I try to say it once a day. And your children know this about me. In a community where every student is known and needed, Millbrook prepares its students for college and lives of meaning and consequence by instilling the values of respect, integrity, service, stewardship of the natural world, and curiosity. That's our promise. Our faculty and staff work here because they want to make that mission come alive. It's not just words. It is our reason, our raison d'etre. Anyone who comes here, whether you are a faculty or a student, you want to be a part of that mission, to deliberately design and or experience every nuance of it so that we can turn this philosophical elixir into a potable potion. People. So I'll share with you Mr. Poling, his very first utterances of this school. It's the preface that he wrote in 1928 when he was trying to raise a little money to create this school called Millbrook. And this is the preface. That bricks and mortar and money and even sound educational theory in building a school are no substitutes for the personalities of the teachers. That the spirit of the institution, its ultimate value, will in the last analysis depend essentially on the quality of men and women on the faculty. Our enrollment and size of faculty and staff is intentionally engineered to fulfill our mission, to make sure every student is known and needed. And our scale and size makes it possible to utilize the faculty's collective wisdom and commitment for the benefit of each student. And I hope you witness some of that today. So we attract and retain and grow and inspire people. And now as I look to the leadership of Jasper Turner and Jarrett Clark and J.J. Morrissey and Prince Botchway and Shannon Vollmer and Meg Grover and my whole team, we see this coming alive. We've implemented a growth and renewal program of observation, evaluation, substantial and constructive feedback for our adults on campus. And as we analyze and interpret the threat of evolving expectations of the educational workforce, and as we worry about teachers exiting the profession in record numbers, we must continue to be a destination for adults as much as we are for our children. And in the spirit of people, diversity and inclusion matters. What an advantage we have at boarding school. We're not confined to the lines of a district or radius of a travelable neighborhood. We can bring the whole world down School Road. And we must make every effort to do just that, to balance being an American boarding school with a global influence and deliberately recruit faculty and students who represent the broad range of demographics of America. And by doing so, we will attract those from other countries, cultures, and perspectives in the world because they want to be a part of this community. Program. We must intentionally share. Our individual differences make up the wonderful diversity of this campus. But if there are not mechanisms to share, all will be lost. So we have and continue to build programs that deepen connections. As our English department says, build windows and mirrors to share stories, build empathy, understanding, learn from one another, listen to understand, and ultimately find connections and celebrate differences. This thickens the very being of Millbrook, and this we do. We assemble 4 to 5 times a week as a whole school. We have mechanisms like chapel talks, Tuesday talks, temperature checks, Friday night clubs, which include both selected and elected affinity groups. We have familial lounges in every dormitory where all topics are welcome to be presented and contested. In these programs, we create shared experiences for our community. We reinforce our mission, our motto, our mantras, and you witnessed that today. We listen to the needs and desires of our students, and then we get to work. We program, we reinforce, and we repeat and repeat and repeat. I believe that place matters more than people are often willing to admit. Picking this site was one of Mr. Poling's most brilliant decisions for the school. Winston Churchill says we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. Here at Millbrook, we're blessed to teach and live and learn in a jaw-dropping, inspirationally designed campus where this, call it whatever it is, traditional, Georgian, agrarian, inspirationally designed campus sort of meets and converges with this lovely quilt-like layered land of Dutchess County. And we have needs. We're playing catch up with the growth of our faculty and student body over the last 10 years. The athletic center is small and inadequate. Farmhouse, well, there's that. Our chapel is a little too small these days, and as we make plans for improving these spaces, we're inspired by one simple, worthy, and I might argue transcendent idea that adjacencies can cultivate connection. And to be the ideal destination for the teenage years, where thick culture is created by a total community experience, we do have to do a little catch-up with our plant to our program and do it in a way that feels just the same but only better. Plan. Mike Tyson, I think, said this. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. I don't fear the punches. And we should still have a plan. This past weekend, 20 of our 24 trustees came to campus for a 3-day retreat to fine-tune the expression of our strategic vision. And the elements won't surprise you. Build upon our strengths and address our perceived weaknesses. We have some buildings to build. We have people and programs to support. Sustainability and inevitability equals endowment, endowment, endowment. And as my leadership team, the trustees and I build out plans to move closer and closer to our strategic objectives, I want you to know that I want Millbrook to be proud and outspoken about being the destination for a profound adolescent experience. I want every graduate of Millbrook School to say for the rest of their lives, I had a great childhood. I played, I prepared, and I carry Millbrook wherever I go. What a privilege that would be. So this school is great. It's not perfect. No place or person is, but we're on the move. One trustee with children currently enrolled says that we're flourishing. She said, we are a verb, we're not a noun. I like that. I think that trustee is right. A stationary school is stale, and a child wants a school like them that's on the move too. So that's the state of the school from my point of view. And I'll end with one of my favorite quotations from Shakespeare. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. That you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. That's Midsummer's Night's Dream by The Hype. It's November 8th, 9th, 10th, right here on this stage. Thank you. When are we supposed to go to class? Does anyone actually know the answer to that? I'm actually serious. Is it now? Is it 2:15? I was just going to see if you had any questions.
New construction on School Road.
So the new construction on School Road. We have 6 new faculty housing units. Those ones that look really, really big are duplexes, just FYI. So we have 4, I don't know, I'm looking at Jeff Smith, for roughly 5 or 6 years have had to rent homes off campus in order to provide housing for faculty. Not ideal. The more adult presence, the better. That's what you want, I think, as parents of boarding school students. And so some years ago, we fortunately did this before interest rates went wild. We refinanced a little bit of our school debt. We're able to take on money to essentially pay the mortgage of these places, and now we're able to bring the faculty who are off campus onto campus. And what's awesome about putting in new faculty homes, we actually renovated a home called Abbott House where Jeff and Sarah McWright now live, is that Faculty will make shifts around campus. We're able to do renovations of current apartments, and 22 to 25 people will probably feel like they just got a real upgrade in where they live. And faculty housing in boarding school is sort of the king currency. We live these lives where if I come out of Middlebury College, where I went to undergrad, and I come to Millbrook School at 22 years old, your starting salary is roughly $41,000, $42,000. And you get to live on 1,000 acres with a hockey rink and basketball court and built-in community and a library, anything you want, and have professional development and a pretty good retirement benefit package starting at 22. So you get all of these other things, but to be able to live here is actually the heart of the work. So thank you. I appreciate you asking me that. We didn't sell the field to people. Any other questions? Please, up top. Sonny.
John, not to put a bit of a power on what was a great presentation by you, but what's your assessment of how the student body has absorbed the sort of unprecedented events of this last week? How do you feel like the community has reacted? And I'm not looking for any.
No, I'm
answer. I'm just trying to get a sense.
Yeah, let me answer that, and I really appreciate that question. It feels like we're in real time. Remember, when we're in high school, we've got 13-year-olds here. I know one advisee who was out with two 13-year-old, one's 14, one's 13, girls from nearby, Jewish, and they were asking questions, and I don't. This is not funny, right? This is developmentally where children are. They were asking questions of who's this Hamas person? I haven't heard of him, right? And they want to ask those questions and engage. And then we have 18-year-olds who know a lot more and who are online, who are talking with their parents, who are asking me for spaces and places to talk with adults on campus, and actually beginning to build some plans with me, with Prince Botchway, with Cam Hardy, with all the adults on campus of how we can care and support one another as we move forward through the year, right? I mean, they're recognizing that the ugliness of the last week, just the murder of the last week, it may not be going away for a little bit. And so how can we continue to process that and meet children where they are? And my illustration was to show you that they're in very different places, and continue to keep school. So the absolute challenge and the joy of working with teenagers is that they're in some ways sophomoric, and I love that word because if you look at the Latin roots, the etymology of the word, it means wise fool. And they will say some things that are so profound and so thoughtful that they will motivate the adults on campus to want to be our very best to support them. And then they will say things that are so ignorant and so out in left field. And not, I don't even mean it to make fun of them. They just don't know because that's where they are. And so I appreciate that question. I hope I answered that. We're taking the temperature, sort of minute by minute. Yeah, please.
Hey, first of all, I'm probably not speaking just for myself. It's a privilege to hear you
Seriously.
speak.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks.
Round of applause. You do a super job, and you're talking about the culture that we see coming into this place. We see it, right, as parents, and it reminds me of a fractal, right? Something that self-replicates. Yep. Everywhere you go here, you're going to feel that compassion, and you're going to feel that happiness. But you said the place isn't perfect, and so if there was a fractal that you could bring into the culture, that something else that's not here yet, that you could see self-replicate in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Is there something
Yeah.
that could be added?
I really appreciate that question. You're going to learn a little bit about this tomorrow with some of our speakers. We had, as some of you know, we adjusted our schedule probably 2 or 3, right in the middle of COVID. It was wild. That we tried to schedule change when the schedule was changing every day. But we took away Saturday classes. We created space on Saturday morning to do a little more social emotional learning work. And I think the first year was okay. We were learning and building out that program. And then I think this year it's come a long, long way. I actually snuck into, I haven't even told Mr. Tom this, I snuck into a couple sessions that were totally student run where they were talking about healthy and not so healthy relationships, and they were doing skits about that. And it was, a couple of the skits were like, oh my God, there's no interpretation of that. That's silly. But then some of them got like really ambiguous, and then it created conversation. So I see some improvement in that space. But we've been talking a lot about like how we can make sure that we truly are a school of wellness, of like positive psychology. And you're going to hear Dr. Samantha Boardman speak about that tomorrow. You're going to hear from Caroline Salas-Humara and Matt Bocci, and Billy Tom will be sort of moderating. But you're going to hear a little bit about that movement in that space. And then yesterday, it was the brightest part of my day. It was a hard day. I had hard conversations with many of you that as we just process everything. And a friend that I haven't talked to in 20 years, his name's Mike Irwin. He's a graduate of West Point. He did a tour in Afghanistan, 2 tours in Iraq, and he started an organization called Red, White, and Blue. If you're a runner, you know it. You've seen it. These shirts are everywhere. And he's on this positive psychology movement, and he was talking with me about curriculum and development on Saturdays. And so, one, I have many answers to it, but it's just sort of fresh on my mind as you ask me, like one space where I think we can really improve, and there's new curriculum and new science coming out around this, is like using some of that time to talk truly about not sickness, wellness. And sometimes schools make the mistake. So, thank you. Did I wear you down? All right.
I have an easier question. So Millbrook is, I think, the only high school in the United States that has a zoo.
Yeah.
How are you, under your leadership, leveraging the fact that we have this phenomenal resource here?
It's a great question. I'm trying to say I can answer this in 60 seconds. It's a crown jewel of Millbrook School, right? And I used to joke about this, but there's a line in the world needs one more George Orwell reference. But there's a line in George Orwell's 1984. It says, "A lunatic is a minority of one." When you're the only one doing something, you kind of look around and go, is this right? But I actually think it's genius. I think it's absolutely. We were doing things. No one wants to be on a panel with me when we talk about sustainability in a school, because they're like, okay, John's gonna. They're saving endangered species at Millbrook School. We got a garden with like a little bed in our day school in New York. Like the kids are watering the one little. you all know. I've been into the schools. Like, so we have this special thing. So that one, and then let me just acknowledge that I honestly don't know, and I'll challenge any of you to prove me wrong. I don't think there's a better private-public partnership in the United States in independent schools. And all independent schools are clawing for that. They don't want to be so gated. They don't want to seem to be elite and inaccessible. So they're thinking about how they partner with the public. We have 40,000 visitors a year just at Trevor Zoo. It's the number 2 ranked visiting site in Dutchess County on TripAdvisor. And Jeff Smith is so funny about this because the walkway over the Hudson's number 1. And he's like, that doesn't count. It's half Putnam County and half Dutchess County. Or sorry, Orange, what is it? Ulster, forgive me. I'll have Ulster and half Dutchess. So I am proud. Actually, under my leadership, at the board level, we've created a committee to be trustees of the zoo. If you're a trustee of Millbrook School, you're a trustee of the Trevor Zoo. I mean, and it's a very simple foundation. Like, we need to do that. We need to start governing it as the sort of entity that it is. And then we've built out, which I'd love to share with you maybe this spring, a kind of master plan for the Trevor Zoo. So that's a 30-year vision of like, what does the Trevor Zoo look like in 30 years? And you got to look out that far because you have all of those stakes you got to put in the ground in terms of critical path, right? There's infrastructure that we need to do, and then we got to bring our facilities up for both animal husbandry and the visitors' experience. So we've got a plan in place, we've got governance in place, and then the next step will be to actually create a whole nother funnel of fundraising. That is locals who for generations have enjoyed this place to come in and partner with us and help us achieve the vision that we want to have. And I think we have an opportunity where I promise you, if your child works in the zoo and they're applying to colleges, there will be no other child, in that world of like, how can I differentiate myself? Well, if it's genuine and you want to work over there and you want to bring that into the collegiate space, nobody else is doing it. So we're looking at continuing to build partnerships with actually specific colleges and universities where this is important work.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, good? Thank you.